We're talking today about evolving our self-image. This is not a term that I hear as much as things like self-worth or self-love. So what does self-image mean to you?
It really means what I'm willing to allow myself to receive, right? It's how do I see myself in my life, right? And this is so important, especially if you are in a relationship where there is abuse or where there is suffering. I really would invite you to question your self-image, because it is linked to what we are willing to suffer, really, and what we are willing to enjoy. I think all this comes together in our self-image, and our self-image is so wonderfully concrete that we can just get to work on it, and we can do so in a very tangible way. It's not all in the mind, right? Because a lot of coaching is about our mindset, and of course that is all good stuff, but with our self-image we can do so much real life stuff that we can really start doing today if we want.
Yes. And so, okay, so how does one begin to change how they view themselves? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, fabulous question, because we are informed about who we are through everything around us, aren't we? How people react to us, what we surround ourselves with. And it's very difficult to see ourselves in a completely different way to how other people treat us and what surrounds us, right? It's very difficult for me to feel, to feel abundant, to feel rich, if I'm living in an attic with rats running around me, and no money in my bank account. It's very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's really difficult to persuade myself that I'm really abundant, I'm really rich. So we can start changing that, really, if we are in that attic and if we're feeling really poor, by changing little things very intentionally. So we can't go from being in our attic feeling really poor to feeling like a millionaire. We have to go in incremental steps, and that is where we can get to change how we think about ourselves, how we see ourselves, at the same time that we change our surroundings, right? So if we feel very poor, and let's say we're wearing a t-shirt, a $3 t-shirt made in China, maybe we can up-level that. Maybe we can go out, save up, and go out and get a t-shirt that costs $12 perhaps, right? And already start enjoying that and see what that does to our self-image. Right? So that's a very extreme example. But if we take it into our lives, Andy, we look at, well, what am I really selecting in my life experience, and what am I rejecting? And one of the things that you can start thinking about is, what am I really tolerating in my life that I don't have to tolerate? How am I tolerating that people treat me? And how do I want to think about that? So starting new behavior, like, for instance, very simply, going into a restaurant, and if you're offered a table that you don't fancy, like could be a table next to the toilet, you just say, well, no, thank you, because I'm not the sort of person who sits next to the toilet, right? I'm the sort of person who gets a very good table in a restaurant. If not, then I just say, no, thank you. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. I love how you're linking it to, right, the combo of, right, how we feel about ourselves inside, but also like what kind of environment are we in physically, right, in our world, and obviously that too relates to relationships, which is, right, the theme today in the world of narcissistic abuse. And obviously what is it that we're tolerating? What kinds of behaviors, what kind of relationships are we surrounding ourselves with that might be influencing that? So do you think that this kind of work, I mean, you've given these little examples of, right, things we could probably do in our day-to-day life, but as a whole, do you think this is work we can do on our own, right, to evolve that self-image?
Yeah, so this is speaking directly to me, because I used to be in a narcissistic abuse relationship, right? But I couldn't see it because I was in it, right? I couldn't see it because I thought I was treated badly because, well, that was what I deserved, right? I wasn't any better than that. So I couldn't expect any better treatment. And that is really a vicious circle, because the longer I stayed, the worse I felt about myself and the harder it got to get out of it. And what really made me realize that I had to stop this relationship was how this person treated my parents, who were lovely. I mean, you could like them or not, but there was really nothing offensive about them. And when I saw this person treat my parents in a very, very, I don't know how to qualify it really, but a very condescending way, I thought, well, why would he be doing that to these perfectly okay people? I mean, he's doing it to me, I understand, because that's just what I'm worth, really. But if he's doing that to my parents, what does that say about him? And let me just get out of this relationship, because this is not who I want to be with, right? I'm not the sort of person who is with a person who abuses my parents. Do you see what I mean? So I needed that sort of external experience just to become aware that there was something slightly off here, or that was a lot off, but I couldn't see that at the time. So I needed somebody from the outside really to give me feedback on what was happening on the inside. And I would really suggest that everybody goes and confronts really their perhaps friends, family, whatever, and see through their eyes. Because as soon as we see through their eyes, well, then the whole setup looks completely different, doesn't it? And although at the time I couldn't see that he was treating me in the same abusive way that he was with my parents, I couldn't see that, but I had enough good sense to realize that a person who could treat my parents like that, he couldn't be the right person for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think there's lots of help out there through your courses, right? Sometimes we think, oh, I can do this on myself, on my own. And which, of course, you can up to a certain point, because I was able to get out of suffering on my own, but I wasn't able to get into thriving on my own. It's a little bit like learning a language. We talked about languages. And I think if you want to learn Italian, say, you can, of course, study through books, and you can watch films, and you can do a lot of things on your own. But you can only go so far, right? If you never speak to an Italian person, or if you never have a teacher, it's really, really difficult to become fluent in Italian. So at some point, you have to get the help that you need, I believe, to really, well, you stop the suffering, but to really up level, to go into your expansion and your thriving. I think we really need a helping hand. I don't know how you feel about that, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I think support, it might look different for different people, but I definitely think we need support.